Hello, it's us again. Welcome to this special one-off episode of the 1871 podcast. And we've decided to bring you this episode to update you on everything we know about the current situation at Reading FC. So that's it then for this episode. Bye. Well, look, actually, that is pretty much how the Reading fans are feeling at the moment, isn't it? But look, before we start this episode, we have a confession for you. We were so convinced that Chris Wilder was going to be the new Reading manager that we prepared an episode to go live when the official announcement was made, which we thought was imminently, as a lot of the Reading fans did, I think. Unfortunately, it went live in error. So we officially announced Chris Wilder as the new manager before it happened. Even if it is going to happen, we don't know. But frankly, like many Reading fans, we're actually getting bored of waiting for some news. So just for fun, the episode is now live, so you can have a listen. So just to confirm, Chris Wilder has not been announced as Reading's new manager. Well, not yet anyway. But you can listen to the episode or watch on YouTube if you are interested in hearing what our reaction was when we thought Chris Wilder was about to be announced as the new Reading manager. So that's available now. But look, let's discuss what is going on at Reading. And Johnny and I are joined on this episode by the Reading Chronicle's Reading FC reporter, James Earnshaw. And James, welcome back to the 1871 podcast. And I imagine that it's quite a challenging time for you to be able to do your job properly as a Reading FC reporter at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, cheers for having me on, Mark. Yeah, it's been a weird, nervy time, and social media is a bit of a cesspit at the minute, to be honest. And rightly so. Fans are wondering what's going on, and to be honest, most people in the club are wondering what's going on. It's a problem when you've got such a small sort of select group of people that are in control. Is that it's not really filtered down. It's not obviously helped with staff members not being in. Obviously Mark Bowen being off the last couple of, I think it's last week or so. The club's sort of seemingly grounded to a halt, and not a lot seems to be moving forward, and it's frustrating. Even more frustrating, there's nothing we can really do about it.
Yeah. Well, James, look, we've got some questions to put to you from Reading fans. And then Johnny and I are going to try to do our best to make some sort of sense, Johnny, about what's going on at the club at the moment. And James, we've got you for about 10 minutes. We know as you're currently taking a break at work. So thank you for joining us. So look, let's kick off. And I've got a question for you, James, from Paul Bugs Evans on Facebook. And I've chosen this question first is because it's the question that a lot of, well, I think most, if not all Reading fans are asking. Paul just wants to know what the bloody hell is going on.
Don't we all?
There's a lot of fans want to know the answer to that, so they'd be very interested to hear your answer, James.
Yeah, there's a lot of journos that want to know as well. It's sort of all difficult to gauge, isn't it, with all the sort of rumours that are banding around on Twitter. I think the truth is sort of nobody really has much of an idea. As much as we definitely know is that as of even the end of May, that the manager situation was close to being resolved. They had a list down to 2 or 3, and they were, looking to bring somebody in, whether that was Wilder. I think it probably was Wilder, but it's not been confirmed. So something's cropped up. Obviously, Mark Bowen sort of his compassionate issues and him sort of heading off to sort of clear his head out has sort of brought everything to a standstill, and that's about as much as we know. Nothing's really changed the last couple of weeks. No manager has signed any contracts as far as I'm aware. There might have been some sort of gentleman's agreement where they're going to take over, but nothing's been signed. There's no official announcement pending soon. So we just got to hope that once Bowen gets back to work and he's got himself sorted, that things start to move at a quicker pace, because we need a manager and we need players and whatever else. And obviously Jared Dublin heading off is not ideal, but I think that is more of a case of just a better offers come in, and being a League One club, you're not really in a position to turn that down. but yeah, it's a lot is happening and not a lot's happening. It's all a lot of talk, but nothing really concrete is actually moving.
Yeah, and James, I want to ask you because obviously we had all the kind of anticipation of the new manager, and then all of a sudden it went quiet. And there's been some talk, I think, over the last few days that the owners have had enough. They want to sell up, and there's some suggestion that they've actually walked away, they've disappeared. Do you think, I'm going to ask you this question because it's something that a lot of Reading fans are concerned about now. Do you think there's a real danger that Reading could be or are already in serious trouble now? And should we be getting concerned about things like the possibility of, if the owner walks away and a new owner isn't found, could the club go into administration? Is that are we not at that stage yet, or is there a genuine concern that something like that might be in the near future?
There's always that concern in the back of your head, isn't there? You never truly know, especially with never having met or spoken to Mr. Dye. He's the only man that knows that. As far as I'm aware, he was willing to listen to offers, but I think that's how football works. I don't think there's an owner that won't listen to an offer if the right money comes in. But I don't think I was asked. I asked a question to senior people at the club last month, and it was business as usual. And Dye's, as always, nothing's changed. If a good offer comes in and it's decent money, then he'll take it. But he's not actively looking to get the club off of his hands. And as far as I'm aware, nothing's changed. So I don't think, the staff were paid, on time last month for not the first time, for the first time in quite a while with bank holidays and whatever else. There's no real suggestion
that. I just checked. Did you say that the staff weren't paid on time?
No, they were.
Oh, they were.
Okay. They were last month. Yeah, sorry. So they were last month. So there's no real signal. I know that other than Bowen, everybody was in the training ground yesterday in terms of the hierarchy higher up. The likes of Carey and De Jong Pang were at Bearwood. So there's nothing to suggest that Dye has suddenly gone nowhere. But with someone that lives in China and with the sort of aloof figure that he's become, nobody truly knows. I don't think, unless you're Mr. Dye.
Yeah, and look, we've got loads of other questions from Reading fans, and we know your time's limited, James. So we're going to try and get through as many of those questions from the Reading fans as we can. But before that, Johnny, is there anything that you'd like to ask James?
Oh no, I just think the whole silence. No news is good news in our case. Isn't it, James? As a journalist, it must be very frustrating for you as the fans, because we've not heard anything really apart from about the women's team. I know today is the first day of the transfer window as well, isn't it? So it's a huge time for any club to go through changes, but the fans do have a right to have something from the club, don't they, about what's going on?
Yeah,
clubs are doing it.
Yeah, I don't think the club have really helped themselves with the lack of communication. I think this is something that could have been nipped in the bud sort of much earlier, even if it was a passing statement to say, we're aware of the time it's taking, but rest assured, things are in hand and there's nothing to worry about. But the truth is the people that are making those statements genuinely don't know either. The ones that are making the decisions aren't particularly coming at dropping information down, and the ones that are, sat there at the laptops putting these press releases together, they've got time to kill and they've got targets to meet, and they're putting out these. I know this morning's tweet sort of riled a few people up, but that was probably written days ago and scheduled for this certain time, and it's nothing to do with them, that the people above them have sort of kept everybody in the dark. So yeah, I don't think the club have helped themselves at all, and fans are obviously scared more than anything and frustrated, and I think there's a lot of people in the club that are probably feeling the same. The average run of the mill Monday to Friday staff that aren't sure if their jobs are going to be here in 2, 3, 4 weeks or months' time.
And James, I've got a question from Richard Brandt on Facebook. He wants to know, as far as you know, is the club definitely up for sale?
I don't think anything's changed and that they've put a sign in the window saying for sale. But as far as I'm aware, as it has been for as long as Mr. Dye's been here, that if a good offer comes in, then he would listen. It is all I've been told. I've not been told anything such as on this specific day he wants to sell the club. So as far as I'm aware, it's business as usual. And if someone comes in and puts a lot of money on the table, or clears the debts, or gives Dye some form of break even or profit, then I'm sure his ears are listening. But other than that, I mean, it's just as dark as you.
Yeah, and what's your gut feeling, James? Do you think the club will be sold? Between now and the end of next season, what's your thoughts?
My gut changes every single morning that I wake up and read Twitter. That's the thing. I had always thought that he would give us 1 year in League One to try and get back up. But sort of, I don't know. My gut feeling now is that I don't think Dye will be here next season. That's just my gut. That's not based off of anything.
As in the season coming, or the following season?
The following season.
Okay.
I think that's just my gut. I don't have any sort of intel on Dye. No one really talks to him at all, to be honest, other than Bowen. But yeah, the signs aren't sounding good, are they, coming out? And obviously Smudge, my predecessor, had been at the club for 25 years, so I'm sure he's picked up a fair few more sources than I have in my year in the role. So there's no smoke without fire.
Got one more question for you, James, because I know you need to go. So Paul Mills on Facebook, and I'm going to summarise what Paul has said here. He says that even though Reading have some good quality players in the under-23 team, we are now seeing players leave without any announcement or acknowledgement. And the theory that Paul is putting forward is that the owners have gone. As I say, this is a theory being put forward by Paul, possibly based on what he's read on social media. So his theory is that the owners have gone. They've left Mark Bowen to it. And by the way, as you mentioned, we believe Mark Bowen's on compassionate leave, possibly due to a death in the family. So we do hope that Mark and his family are okay in the circumstances. Just want to say that, and we think that, as you alluded to, James, that could mean that nobody else is kind of authorised to say anything. Do you think that sums it up?
Yeah, the Naby Sarr one was interesting, especially when they released the statement. But as far as I'm aware, sort of Naby Sarr had sort of gone off or his agent had gone off and sorted himself out a new club without, warning the club that he was doing so. So I think the club were fully expecting Sarr to be on the books next season, or at least, beginning of July when the contract sort of reset. So that came as a shock to everybody. And when they then put the release out at 10:30 on a Sunday night, it kind of caught everybody off guard. And I think they were a little bit miffed that the etiquette wasn't particularly followed by the Qatari club, or maybe even particularly even Naby Sarr himself. So that one was a very sort of odd scenario. But I presume Bowen would be the man that would sign it off. But as De Jong Pang as CEO, surely he should be able to sign things off. I mean, my thinking is surely the whole club shouldn't come to a standstill just because Mark Bowen's off. Is my thinking of how a business would work. But again, from what people have been saying, De Jong Pang isn't particularly the most efficient working in a football club. So maybe it is all coming down to Mark Bowen, in which case that's a lot of pressure to be put under while dealing with your own personal things. So difficult time for everybody.
James, have we got you for a few more minutes, or do you need to go?
Yeah, I'll do one more question.
Okay. Well, look, I'm going to. I've got a few things to read out in terms of the problems that Reading fans perceive with Reading. One of the big ones is that there's no actual news from the club, players are leaving and so on. James, final question, and this is from John Randall on Twitter. And John says he still thinks that Wilder is a done deal pending an official announcement, but he'd like to know, was that really Chris Wilder in the photo at the training ground? He also wants to know if you think that Chris Wilder has agreed to be our manager, and is that being held up by the EFL or the owners, or is something else going on?
I believe it was not Chris Wilder in the photo. I did a bit of digging and a bit of talking and a bit of searching around, and as far as I'm aware, that wasn't Chris Wilder. So I can only go off of that. I do believe Chris Wilder is the one that the Reading wanted. I believe there's plenty of talks, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some form of handshake or verbal agreement where you go, by this certain date, I'll come in. I mean, all the potential jobs he was linked with have all been filled, with the likes of Huddersfield and Hearts, and even the vague one of Celtic is now looks like it's being filled by Brendan Rodgers. So unless he fancies his chances of hanging on until December and picking up a job halfway through the season, but as far as I'm aware, I still think all going well. I still think it'll be Wilder. I just think it's taking a hell of a lot longer than anybody would have expected, the club included. But yeah, I don't think that was Wilder in the picture.
Okay. Well, look, James, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Cheers for having me.
Get back to trying to find out what's going on side. And yeah, thanks very much.
No, that's good. Cheers for having me on. I wish I had more to say.
Yeah, thank you, James. So look, Johnny, let's have a chat now about what, we don't really know, do we? We're Reading fans. We're in the dark. We did think Chris Wilder was going to be the new manager. He might be. We've put out, we prepared that episode, didn't we? And then we were waiting every morning. We're checking, searching for news about Chris Wilder, Reading, like nothing. And then, Phil Parkinson's come out and said he'd be a great fit, but actually Reading would do really well to get him. So there's obviously, as James said earlier, that there's no smoke without fire. I think what's happened over this process is that we've gone from, okay, the disappointment of relegation, but now, I was feeling quite positive about the reset as it's been referred to, and the chance to rebuild the club. And then we heard that Chris Wilder was in the frame, then he was the favourite, then it looked like he'd been offered the job and it was going ahead. And now, literally in the last sort of couple of days, people are kind of sitting back and thinking, there could be something serious up here. So I think you alluded to it quite a while ago that you were concerned. What happens if the owner walks away, and we don't, there isn't a long list of people willing to step in. So I don't know. We might be overthinking it. It might be that the owner just is not communicating, and he's going to hang around until there's a buyer. But there's clearly some sort of problem. So look, here's some of the key problems that Reading fans are thinking about and wondering what's going on. So the list of issues is as follows. There's no actual news from the club. Players are leaving. Naby Sarr had a good end to the season, decent player. He's gone. No comment whatsoever about the manager situation, which in a way you can understand, but it's just a bit bizarre. And you see other clubs, announcing managers, and it's going to be July soon. The owners seem to have disappeared. There's talk now that he's looking to sell the club. Head of scouting, Jared Dublin, looks like he's on his way, probably to Stoke, after just 5 months at the club. And it looked like it was going to be Chris Wilder as Reading's new manager. We still think it might be. But I don't know if you saw on Twitter, AD Williams, there's now a rumour that the new manager is going to be Steve Cottrell, because AD Williams spotted someone in a car in towards the direction of the training ground with a shirt with a Reading FC badge on it and SJC on his car number plate. And Steve Cottrell's middle name begins with J. So does Steve Coppell's, by the way. So there's that rumour that's been started by AD Williams, because he said he was on his bike. He saw this. This is a true story. So that's the latest rumour. There's no updates, I don't think, on renewal of contracts. And basically, Johnny, none of the Reading fans know what's going on. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, as a club, it's poor. Like you say, if Mark, is off because of family issues or whatever, the buck shouldn't stop with him. He needs his time to do whatever he does or whatever else is going on behind the scenes. We don't know, and that's people's private business. But as a club, they still have they need to have communication, and communication is vital in any world, but more so than ever, as our football club, all the fans and everyone that's involved, that this time more than ever, there's been no communication around anything, and all it does for anyone, it creates anxiety. Even the most stable person in the world, if you don't hear what's going on, then now in this world that we live in of social media and ADC and someone in his car, and somebody else will be spotting some with grey hair down at the training ground, which could have been me. I don't know. It just creates this stress, and the club, like you said earlier, they could have put a lot of this to bed. They could have just made a statement saying, "This is what we haven't got a manager, whatever. This is what we're doing at the minute, whatever." Something, give people something to work with. Style, we contacted them for an update. And it's like, I don't know, trying to bang your head against a brick wall constantly, trying to get snippets of information that really, unless there's a Chinese bureaulist that pop round the owner's house and maybe ask him what's going on for us, that'd be great.
Well, I mean, it's getting to that point, isn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously, there was the session, I think, with Mark Bowen. Was it a Blue Collar Food a few weeks ago? It was all very positive, and now the fans are saying it just sounds like a load of rubbish the way things are at the moment. So look, that question from John Randall on Twitter, he thinks that Wilder's a done deal. What do you think, Johnny?
I think it is a done deal, but there's something else going on. Maybe I had this feeling, about the owners, if they go down to League One, do they actually want to do it anymore? Is it like all the problem in modern football? These owners, it's like a toy to them. Oh, I don't want that one anymore. I'll go and get something else to play with because the money's not an issue for them. And and this is happening in football all around. And at the minute, it could go. It's going to go two ways. Maybe I don't know if the embargo has any impact on what's going on at the minute, because I don't think that's officially over till July. But I don't think that affects recruitment of managers and coaches and all that stuff. I think that's separate, but it's just not good news. It's probably the biggest critical time in our club's history for probably since the last relegation in '98. It's huge. It's a huge point of where we need to go, and they're really not helping themselves. And it's not, like I say, it's not about Mark and his personal issues. It's about a club that somebody's in there, the CEO of any business should be speaking, and you're not getting that communication.
Or giving that task to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Anthony Smith, former Reading Chronicle Reading reporter, as James referred to there, he's put something out on Twitter that there's I can't remember the exact wording, but the owner wants to sell the club. The owner's gone missing. Potentially that could scupper the Chris Wilder deal. And I think this week there's genuine concern for the club. What you alluded to it quite a long time ago, Johnny. And there's all sorts of issues, isn't there? But let's get back to a few of the questions. James doesn't know a lot. We know less than James does, I'm sure. But Chris Bennett on Facebook, 1871 podcast quiz winner. By the way, Johnny, before I read out that question, we seem to have turned up in roughly Reading away colours.
Yeah.
Some sort of uniform. We didn't plan this in advance, by the way, but both in the sort of orange, tribute to some of the away kits in a way. Didn't even think about it like that. But anyway, get back to the question from Chris Bennett on Facebook. He wanted to know, did we get a fee from Naby Sarr? I don't know if James would have known that. We don't know that, do we? No. Why was he let go? I think it was more his decision, I guess.
Yeah.
Will we need another head of scouting? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge role, isn't it? And obviously, and you can't blame anyone for wanting to bet themselves. If he's gone to a club back in the Championship, more money, whatever. That's where we are as a club. We're in League One, and we have to wake up to the fact that we're not the Reading of old who had that pull is in that level. That's a big drop, but we're still a club that has a lot to offer. The training facilities, and for a scouting system to be rebuilt, possibly. We've had with Brian on and Steve, even talking about the lack of scouting. So there's a huge opportunity there for someone to build if we still got a club.
And that's the concern, isn't it, for Reading fans? And I think probably what's happening is the people at the club are just getting on with their jobs in the best way possible. James said that everyone was at the training ground, so we don't know. We might be reading more into it. It might be that the owners are just not around at the moment. They might be having a break, or we don't know. So it might be that it's kind of business as usual in the best way that they can. Obviously, Mark Bowen, as we said, off on compassionate leave. So we hope everything's okay there with Mark and his family. And Chris's other question, Chris Bennett, this is an interesting question, Johnny. Why is it taking so long to appoint a new manager? I think we've kind of covered that a little bit. It's probably to do with Mark Bowen not being around. What do you think the reason for the delay is? What's your thoughts, Johnny?
I honestly, like everyone, you like James was saying, you gut feeling. 1 minute you think, well, maybe Bowen changed his mind. He's waiting for another job. He's looking for a club higher up. He doesn't want to do the whole rebuild. Then
you mean he Chris Wilder?
Yeah, like say just like there's an opportunity, or then you're going, well, hold on a second, because the people that are in, certain people do, in the journalist world, and you get, when we talked about our famous fake episode there about Chris Wilder, like at that time, it was pretty much seen that it was a done deal, and it was pretty much 100% happening from certain, the people, the sources, journalists wise, and bigger national wise, and everything like that. And then it just feels like something's changed, something behind the scenes, and it can't just be down to somebody being on passionately, because like you say, there's more than one person at a football.
It's like everything's ground to a halt, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's odd. That's really odd.
We got loads of questions from Reading fans, so I'm going to try and rattle through these. Yeah. So we try and give as short and succinct answers as we can. A lot of it will be based on stuff that we've heard. We're Reading fans. We don't really know what's going on, so we'll ask the questions and then see what we can make of it. So Dean Matthews on Twitter, he wants to know, why is there silence from Reading FC at the moment? I think we've probably covered that a little bit. And he says apparently there's supposed to be some sort of valid reason for this, and that things will return to normal soon. So that's probably to do with the Mark Bowen situation, being on compassionate leave. Go on then, Johnny. I'll let you answer this question from Alex Miller on Facebook. When are we getting a new manager, and who is it going to be? Go.
Right, Mystic Johnny. Here it goes. I reckon that we will get a new manager beginning of July. This is what I'm thinking now. For some reason in my head, beginning of July, we'll have a new manager. We'll have something in place. I don't know what that is. I just think that's where it will be at. That's where
who do you think it will be?
I'd say Chris Wilder. I think there's something there that's not gone away. He's not gone somewhere else. So look, and that's the person that's the best fit at the minute. Okay. Where we're sitting now.
So what's going to happen? First week of July, you heard it here from Johnny. First week of July, Reading will announce the new manager. It will be Chris Wilder, and then you can have a listen to the episode that we've already released where we've announced it. So, Martin Toll on Facebook, question from him. He wonders whether the club would be better off getting another manager from the Championship merry-go-round and try for a quick fix return to the Championship, or actually do the club need to take a longer-term view and get a manager in who can develop a team with academy players coming through, a few more experienced players, and accepting that process might take a bit longer. I think Chris Wilder would be that man, wouldn't he?
Yeah, definitely. But again, it all depends what the owners are thinking. You know, like James alluded, alludes to them being here in a year's time, or are they gone already? You know, and that's where you need for someone like Chris Wilder or any manager, you need to have reassurance that there's a plan, isn't there? You know, 3 years, this is a plan, or 2 years, or 1 year you want to gamble for going back up. Fine, but give us a plan, something to work with. And again, it's silence.
So look, I've got two questions here about the same subject. Ashley Looker and Andy Cov on Facebook. They both want to know, they've posed the question, do we think that Reading have enough financial backing? So Ashley Looker wants to know if we've got enough financial backing to have a proper go at returning back to the Championship at the first attempt. And Andy Cov wants to know, have we got enough financial backing to stay afloat and even start the new season? That's the concern that's creeping in now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all or nothing. That's what it feels like. If the owner's there, great. He will back them financially as he's done before. But if he goes, there's a whole lot of debt and a whole lot of worry, you know, as a club to deal with, and a lack of squad, and lots of things. You know, it's a real concern.
Johnny, what's the debt as far as you understand it? I've heard 120 million, something like that.
Something like that, isn't it? I mean, like, literally, the owner, I think, he owns everything in his name, isn't he? I could be wrong. I could be, the training ground, as far as I know, and I don't know the ins and outs. I know there was, and I don't understand. There was £6 million worth of shares moved over. I don't know what that means. Maybe
I wonder whether, and I don't really fully understand that either. And I wonder whether that might be that that doesn't mean he's put an extra 6 million into the club. He's released enough shares to the value of 6 million, so he's looking for people to buy those shares so Reading can bring £6 million into the club. That's my take on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got this debt, and it is a concern. Another question here, Ollie Miller 18 on Instagram. His question is, who's going to be the new manager? Well, Johnny's answered that one already. Wilder, he reckons early July. Phil Kinsey Evans on Facebook, is the silence from the owners because they've abandoned the club and they're looking to sell on? Well, we've kind of covered that a little bit. Dean Matthews, some of these are a bit more kind of forthright in their wording. Dean Matthews on Facebook asked a question. It sounds like a joke, this, actually, which is what a lot of Reading fans are thinking at the moment anyway. How many clowns can run a football club? Next season, my suggestion is the stadium could be renamed the Circus Arena Stadium. So Gerard Lavelle on Facebook. Here's an interesting question for you, Johnny. You might know the answer to this. Which academy players should be looking forward, or should the Reading fans be looking forward to seeing in the first team next season?
Well, I think, all the lads that have played towards the end of the season, like a briefer, the Clark, the keeper, John Clark as well. He started off last season, got injured. I thought he looked promising. He started off and played the friendlies in the first couple of games and was looking like he, was at a level. So they're certainly there. And I think, whatever happens, there's going to be opportunities for young players to have a pathway at Reading again. I think, with the way that the club, hopefully, being positive, is being run the way it should be, then they'll have those chances to progress. And, with Noel Hunt, hopefully still the club with the under-23s, he's the perfect person. He knows what they need for the first team. He'll get them through.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, we've got so many questions from fans. We could easily do another episode on this. So apologies if you put a question out there and we haven't read it out.
Fly through them in yes and no fashion.
Yeah, we're running out of time now. So look, a couple more, both on the same subject. So Mark Campbell on Twitter and Caroline Parker on Twitter. Mark Campbell says, is the club up for sale? We've discussed that. We think it might be available for sale. Let's put it like that. Caroline Parker on Twitter asked the same question. Is the club up for sale? And also, based on us asking on social media for fans to ask questions about what is going on at the club. Caroline says, crikey, how long have you got to record this episode?
Where do you advertise selling your football club? Anyway, why don't you? Is there a website you can go look for football clubs to sell?
Do you know what? There are organisations that help people buy football clubs.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's advertised on Facebook or in the Sunday Times or anything like that. So just rattling through a few more of the questions. Andrew Ray on Twitter, he said, do you mean you're going to answer questions about what are we sure of? That would be quicker. That's true. So I can answer that one. Yes, it would be quicker, but it would be a very short episode indeed. We don't know a lot. We're just hearing stuff. Alan Munro on Twitter wanted to know, why is there nothing meaningful coming from the club in terms of information? We've covered that. The manager, players, recruitment. No word coming out after we got relegated. The ownership, all huge issues that fans are rightly concerned about, and many feel that something should have been put out, even if it's we can't say yet. So I think that's the point, isn't it? So that's Alan Munro on Twitter. Nothing's coming out of the club. So look, we've got a few minutes left, Johnny. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to read out a few more of these questions so people do get a mention, as many as we possibly can. Michael Hawks on Facebook. He wants to know, and a couple of Reading fans at least have asked this question as well, do we think it might end up being Mark Bowen as manager again? What do you think?
Look, I'd hope not. I and I think because Mark's in his role there, from what he said, and hopefully he's been followed through, that he's the right person for that job. We need the right backroom staff, and he's part of that, and let the manager do his job.
All right, Johnny, I think we've got two final questions. Yeah. One of those questions is from two separate fans. So Darryl Eaton and Andrew Ray on Twitter, not together, separately. They both think that we might be getting a player manager, and that could be the reason for the delay with the announcement. Some Reading fans have commented on that. They think it's a silly idea. We had a player manager before, didn't we? Mark McGee. And then, of course, Jimmy Quinn and Mick Goodin. But actually, the Mark McGee team started doing well when Mark McGee stopped playing. So, look, I think it might, rather than a player manager, it might have more to do with July the 1st. And actually, when we transition from being a championship club into being a League One club, that kind of starts on July the 1st and all that sort of thing. So I think it's possibly more to do with the date. And then Steve Mulford on Facebook, I think he speaks for a lot of the Reading fans. He said, I'm concerned at all levels at how this club has been managed so badly to be in the financial state it is, but also at how the on-field management has been successively for so long, so bad. The silence from the club is deafening and also insulting to the fans. The club have a lot of bridge building to do, and they must start by communicating a lot better than they have. And please, can we have a definitive statement from the owner as to what his vision / plan is for the immediate and long term? What restrictions in terms of financial limits have been imposed or not by the EFL? What is being done to recruit the manager and the players? I mean, that
sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, we don't know. That's the problem, isn't it? And look, I'm going to do 2 more questions, then we have to leave it there. So Amanda Wood on Facebook, why are the owners keeping us in the dark and not saying anything? And George on Twitter, final question here. Where's the communication from the club? What's happening on the manager front? Is there someone in place to take over recruitment if Jared Dublin does go as the transfer window's approaching? What are the answers from the club? What's happening about a potential sale of the club? These are all the questions the fans want to know. So look, Johnny needs to jump off now, but I'm going to carry on. I'm going to read out a few more questions so you guys get a mention who haven't so far. So Johnny, I know you need to go. So thanks for joining me.
No worries. Take care.
And you can have a listen back to the end bit to see what you missed.
Make sure you say nice things about me.
Yeah. All right. Oh, that Johnny Hunt. Well, what a story about him. Anyway, Johnny.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Cheers. So, yeah, a few more questions here to read out while we wrap up, and it's just me now. So James joined us earlier on. Johnny's had to go as well. So just me on my Todd now. So Alan McMullen on Facebook says, who are the realistic candidates for the manager, if not Wilder? Well, we do think probably it is Wilder. There's a rumour about Steve Cottrell. We don't know, Alan, is the answer to that. And also Alan says the Wilder situation has gone on so long. Is that because he hasn't had the assurances he wanted about squad spending, all the speculation, etc.? What will Reading do to get more kids to the games? I think that's a good question. You know, are there going to be more schools and grassroots initiatives next year? It was great to see the turnouts on those occasions last season. So, yeah, agree with you on that one, Alan. Answer to your question is we don't know. Andrew Taylor on Facebook. This is the question that a lot of fans want to know. What's the plan? How can the club treat its supporters like this? That's the way a lot of the fans are feeling, isn't it? We've just sold a player. It didn't even get a mention. There was the letter from Mark Bowen to the club, and now shit show, he's called it. I think a lot of Reading fans would agree with that. That's Andrew Taylor. That's his comment. And he sums it up, shambles. So that kind of sums up the feeling of a lot of Reading fans. Jason Treby on Twitter, he says, probably the main question is, what has happened to the marketing and comms team? So they're sending out random things about other teams in the league, yet no comms on SAR or updates on the manager, despite getting tagged on hundreds of tweets by fans asking for an update. They can squash these rumours easily, but instead the silence is just fueling uncertainty and unrest by the majority of the fan base. So, Jason, I think we've answered that a little bit. It's probably a bit to do with the situation with Mark Bowen. So, look, another question here. Karen Irene on Facebook. How many players have get-out clauses if we were relegated, which we were, that were written into their contracts? And will there be enough players left to be managed should we ever get a new manager? So I suspect, in answer to that, Karen, and I don't know, but I've got a feeling that whoever the new manager is going to be might have been decided already, might be Chris Wilder, and they're working in the background pending the official announcement. So I think fairly soon after the official announcement, we'll get the announcement on new players coming in. So my answer to that question would be yes, we'll have enough players to put a team out, I would think. So another question, Karsh Davey on Facebook. Are we waiting until July the 1st for an announcement? Could another manager appointment potentially make us fall foul of any EFL ruling? That's a really good question from Karsh. I think kind of the 1st of July topic is relevant. I think, you know, after the 1st of July, that's when we'll see something happens. That possibly means that there's still going to be no news until at least the 1st of July. In answer to that other question, Karsh, don't know. So Steve Sawyers on Twitter says, in the light of Wilder not being announced, could it be that the club are waiting until the embargo is fully lifted in order to give him exactly what he wants? Also, if this circus carries on with no information from the club and people walking away, let's have a protest and a piss up at the SCL. So again, excuse the language if you're offended by any of that, but those are the comments, and that's the way a lot of people are feeling. So I think that's a valid point there. I think, you know, July could be when we start seeing some information coming through. He also says, so this is Steve Soares on Twitter, he also says, as a fan of 32 years, if Dye walks away without finding a buyer like he has done before, what are the chances that the club would eventually liquidate, as nobody will want to take on that level of debt? And he puts it at nearly 200 million. I don't know what the number is. I've heard 120 million. You know, on Steve's message, he said it's closer to 200 million. You know, would a new owner, or would we even get a new owner who would want to sort of pay off that debt? Not being overly positive here, but just using this as an example. Let's look back at, you know, a lot of clubs like Man City, for example. Man City were in the same kind of situation that Reading are in now. I'm not suggesting that we're going to be winning the Champions League anytime soon. I'm definitely not suggesting that. But you look at clubs like Man City, Brighton as well, and they sorted things out. Obviously, Man City had the new owners coming in, but Brighton kind of, you know, did it with the help of the fans. So if it comes to that, you know, maybe if it does get that bad, we'll find a way, as a lot of these other clubs have done. Of course, some clubs have gone out of business and they've reformed with a different name, etc. We don't know if we're anywhere near that sort of situation at the moment, but I think Steve on Twitter makes a really valid point there. So I wanted to kind of rattle through those remaining questions to read out as many as we could. We obviously can't give you all the answers. We can't even give you most of the answers definitively, of course, because we don't know. But thanks everyone to you for putting your questions. We hope you found that interesting and some stuff to think about. Thanks to Johnny, as usual, for co-hosting the episode. And thank you to our guest, James Earnshaw of the Reading Chronicle. So keep an eye on the Chronicle, because James will only put out stories when there's kind of facts involved as a journalist. So keep an eye on the Reading Chronicle. If there's not too much news on there, then that's because there's not too much news coming out of the club or in general. So thanks to James Earnshaw of the Reading Chronicle. Thanks for listening and watching. This is a special one-off episode, so Series 2 is finished. Our episode where we announced that Chris Wilder was going to be new Reading manager to put out and go live when it was officially announced. We thought that was going to be happening imminently. It hasn't, but we've sort of put that episode out there for a bit of fun. Take the mickey out of us if you want to for that. That's absolutely fine. But look, thanks for joining us, and we'll wrap it up there. And finally, thanks to Johnny again, and thanks to our special guest, James Earnshaw from the Reading Chronicle.